from ITN.
The Queen calls for tolerance and an end to bigotry after the Enniskillen bombing. In her Christmas message, the Queen made a personal plea for reconciliation between the divided communities in Northern Ireland. She also spoke of the inspiration given by Mr. Gordon Wilson, whose daughter was killed in the Remembrance Day blast.
It is only too easy for passionate loyalty to one's own country, race or religion, or even to one's favourite football club, to be corroded into intolerance, bigotry, and ultimately into violence. We have witnessed some frightening examples of this in recent years. All too often, intolerance creates the resentment and anger which fill the headlines and divide communities and nations and even families. From time to time, we also see some inspiring examples of tolerance. Mr. Gordon Wilson, whose daughter Marie lost her life in the horrifying explosion at Enniskillen on Remembrance Sunday, impressed the whole world by the depth of his forgiveness.
The Queen has been spending a traditional family Christmas at Windsor Castle. She emerged from the morning service at St. George's Chapel to be greeted by a large crowd of cheering well-wishers. The Queen Mother also had an enthusiastic welcome. But Prince William needed some prompting from his mother as he led out a troop of royal children. The Duchess of York, dressed in Santa Claus red, waved the Queen off as she drove back to the castle. Behind them, the Princess Royal and her husband Mark Phillips, who was walking with the aid of crutches after a tractor accident in the summer. The Archbishop of Canterbury, in his Christmas sermon, has called on people to remember the victims of tragedy and violence. He said we should not forget those who died at Zeebrugge, Hungerford, Enniskillen and King's Cross. He also spoke out against child abuse when a parent's love becomes distorted.
The helpless child can fall victim not to our care and protection, but to exploitation, abuse and cruelty. Sometimes children are not the world's treasures, they are its pawns.
The Royal Navy has helped rescue the crew of a South Korean freighter attacked by Iranian gunboats in the Gulf. A Lynx helicopter from the frigate Scylla picked up 9 crewmen. The freighter, the Hyundai 7, is still on fire off the coast of the Gulf Emirate of Sharjah. The British pilot attempting to fly a microlight aircraft from London to Sydney has been rescued from the Gulf after his engine conked out.
Ditching in the Gulf is only the latest mishap to overtake Brian Milton and his microlight Dalgety flyer. This time his engine suddenly cut out high above the Persian Gulf. His only option was to crush land.
I was obviously very frightened at 2,000 feet in Dalgety flyer before I went in when the engine stopped, but funnily enough, the fear went away after 1,000 feet, and a bit of me was watching the rest of me fly it in. I don't think it was that close a shave. I've never ditched an aircraft before, but I brought her in as slowly as I possibly could, possibly 40 miles an hour, and just before she stalled, I put the nose up, so I slowed her down even more. But the Dalgety flyer is still in the water, and if we can get out there and get her in, I'm sure we can get her to fly again, and that's what we're trying to do right now.
He was plucked out of the sea just 35 miles northwest of Abu Dhabi by helicopter. Last week he was forced to make an emergency desert landing in Jordan, and now, like then, he's determined to continue all the way to Sydney.
A young soldier stationed on the Falklands has had life-saving treatment after a kidney dialysis machine was flown in on an RAF jet from Britain. The soldier is a Royal Green Jackets rifleman. A 3-man medical team flew with the machine from Brize Norton last night. The RAF TriStar broke a flight record by reaching Port Stanley in 15 hours and 50 minutes. And that's all the early news on ITN. We hope that you're having a pleasant day and that you'll join us again for the late news tonight at 11 o'clock.